With America heading for divided government again, both parties are beginning to talk about a revived spirit of bipartisanship between the newly strengthened Republican Senate and the ravening hordes of brain-eating anti-American zombies who will soon be roaming the halls of the House looking for institutions and traditions to destroy and devour. Possible Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, struck a tone of reconciliation in her election night speech to a mob of Tyrolean peasants who were carrying torches and screaming, "Bring us the orange monster." Pelosi told them, quote, "Tomorrow will be a new day in America," Wednesday, in fact, and the next day will be Thursday. After that, it's anyone's guess, but I can confidently declare, where am I? And would someone please remind me what my last name is so I can pick up my Social Security check, unquote. Soon to be head of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, joined in the goodwill effort, announcing to reporters, quote, "I look forward to working with the perfidious nest of traitorous Russian vipers who have infiltrated this administration," unquote. Schiff then tore off his full face mask and revealed that he was actually the late Senator Joseph McCarthy and was promptly reburied with a stake through his heart and a clove of garlic stuffed in his mouth, as it should have been months ago. Even formerly hostile reporters like CNN's Jim Acosta seem to be mitigating their tone. At a press conference after the vote, Acosta politely asked the president, quote, "Excuse me, Mr. President, aren't you literally Hitler? And don't you think that everyone should look at me because I'm Jim Acosta," unquote. President Trump himself made an effort by reaching across the aisle, then climbing to the top of a gas storage tank where he shouted, quote, "You'll never take me alive, G-men. Look, Ma, top of the world," after which he fired his Tommy gun into the gas tank and blew himself and the press corps to kingdom come, then went out and played a round of golf. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shaped, ipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
All right, here we are. We're heading like a careening, out-of-control car into the Klavanless weekend. So brace yourself, but also you can stave off the worst of it when tomorrow we release Another Kingdom to the wide world. The latest episode of Another Kingdom, which I believe is called He Bought Me. Isn't that the one we're on? Yep. And that's been out for subscribers all week, but it will now be out to all of you. Please go on. Please subscribe on SoundCloud or iTunes and leave a 5-star review. And please listen, because it really is good and you will like it. And you can already pre-order the book of the first season and catch up and find out what's going on. All right. Meanwhile, we want to talk about ZipRecruiter, because I know all of you who turn on the Daily Wire think to yourself, oh my God, how did that ever happen? It was because we didn't use ZipRecruiter, which helps you get the people you really want. If you go on ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire, you will find yourself a powerful matching technology that scans thousands of resumes, identifies people with the right skills, education, and experience for your job, and actively invites them to apply. This is the way you get qualified candidates in a big hurry. It's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is rated #1 by employers in the U.S. This comes from Hiring States on Trustpilot with over 1,000 reviews. Right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire, all one word. That's ZipRecruiter.com/DAILYWIRE, ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. Absolutely free. Try it out. Don't let this happen to you. ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire. Hey, we're having a tragedy here in California, not far from us, and certainly not far from where I used to live in Ventura County, Thousand Oaks. A guy, another lunatic who the cops knew about, couldn't get committed. They couldn't put him away. This is the problem we keep having. After all, California has the harshest gun laws in the country, so it's not about the gun laws. He walked in and opened fire on a bunch of college kids at a bar. He killed, I think the last estimate I saw was 12 or 13 people died, and a police officer, a sheriff's department sergeant, Ron Hellis, engaged the suspect along with a California Highway Patrol officer. And according to the LA Times, Hellis was shot multiple times and died at a local hospital. You know, this is the thing that really has come home to me. Last night, Knowles and I were over at Loyola Marymount. You can actually watch this online. We had a wonderful, wonderful time. But the last couple of speeches I've been followed around by armed guards, and there have been armed police officers. I think there was security there last night. I'm not sure they were police officers. It's not a good feeling, to tell you the truth, to have police officers or armed men follow you around when you're just going onto a college campus to talk about ideas, which is what they should be doing on a college campus. But it does bring home to me every time I see it what a remarkable place this is, where the police show up to ensure your free speech. This is not true virtually anywhere else. And even in England, right, the second freest country in the world, maybe along with Israel, the police can come, the police send out these warnings: watch what you say, don't insult the Muslims, don't say anything blasphemous about the prophet, and all this, and you can be arrested in Britain for speaking. Whereas here, the police show up to protect you, they show up to protect free speech. This is a beautiful, beautiful thing. This is a remarkable thing. So last night at this Loyola Marymount speech, Knowles and I are there, and Knowles and I are the two nicest people in the country, right? I don't think there's maybe I don't know, Julie Andrews, is she still in the country? But after that, it's me and Knowles. And these protesters show up and they gag themselves. They had duct tape over their mouth, and Knowles actually said to him, Who gagged you? Oh, you gagged you. You were doing this to yourself. And one of the things we learned in this last election was that educated white people don't like Trump, and maybe they don't like Republicans in general. All these blue suburban districts where there were educated people went even more blue, and they became even more Democrat. And people are saying, as they always say, oh, Democrats are losing the educated suburbanites. They've got to learn how to talk to them. Well, yes, they have to learn how to talk to them, but the other side of this is we have to stop educating people to be idiots. We have to stop educating people and indoctrinating them. I mean, after Knowles and I talked, and you guys listen to us, right? You know what we talk like. After we talked, these people had to go off to a safe space and be reoriented. They had to basically be re-brainwashed in case we said anything that might have been too convincing or too truthful. They had to be told back, talked back. And we were told later, they were silent and polite at our meeting. I will give them that. But before, we were given audio and video of them screaming obscenities at the organizers. And we know that they took our words out of context. At one point, I said to people, look, I'm kind of a libertarian about the way you live your lives. I said, I'm too old and rich to care what you do. And they translated that into I was too old and rich to care about the problems of black people or something like this. And this is what they were telling them and echoing back to make sure we didn't get any new ideas into their heads. So it's only partly about Republicans learning to speak to educated people. It is also about what education is doing to people in this country. It's teaching them to be smaller minded. And I think one of the things that organizations, Republican on-campus organizations, should be doing is they should be actively going before the administration and saying, look, you have got to start hiring some conservative teachers. We should be able to organize debates between professors who are on this campus. We have got to turn this educational system around. It is fine for there to be left-wing teachers, but there should be right-wing teachers too. It is just absolutely disgusting. And they are teaching these people basically to hate free speech. They are teaching them that free speech is the problem, free speech is the danger. The reason these people were wearing gags is our very presence, the very presence of Michael Knowles, the evil Michael Knowles, and I admit he is evil, but the evil Michael Knowles and the evil Andrew Klavan, and I'm a lovely guy, the very presence was gagging them, was somehow silencing them, was somehow harming them. And that kind of fragility is, it's just a terrible, terrible thing. And it is what is causing this stuff we are seeing now, which is absolutely horrifying. Last night, a mob showed up at Tucker Carlson's house and was screaming at him. Here's just a little clip of it. So Tucker's kids are in there and his wife is in there and they're screaming, "We know where you sleep." And even worse, Matthew Iglesias is tweeting out, oh, What about the people who are afraid of ICE? I have no feelings for Tucker Carlson's wife. His victims are afraid. Well, Tucker doesn't have any victims. He just has viewers. And there's a little knob, a little button on your remote control. You can just turn Tucker off like that if that's what you want to do. Tucker is expressing opinions, and if you are so damaged by his opinions, and I like Iglesias said, I know people who have to hide away from ICE because they broke the law. I know people who have to hide away from the police because they've committed crimes. It's like my feelings don't extend quite that far. All Tucker is doing is expressing opinions. And his opinions are not egregious. He's kind of a libertarian conservative, more or less. He's expressing opinions, and they feel that they can respond to opinions with what is essentially acts of violence. Hours after this mob showed up at the home of Tucker Carlson, an affiliated Twitter account published his home address and the home address of his brother, along with the addresses of Ann Coulter, the Daily Caller's Neil Patel, and Sean Hannity. That Twitter feed that is doxing these people has not been taken down, but what has been taken down is Michael Knowles was suspended, a couple of other, a lot of other conservative sites have been suspended, but you can say anything you want if you're a leftist about Jews. You can say anything you want. You can reveal these things if you're, this is the way that educated people are now being educated into small-mindedness and stupidity. So if the educated people are turning against Republicans, it may not be the fault of Republicans. It may be the fault of the educations, of the education. So the big news, I'll pause before getting to the big news because I have to talk about Hair Club, because I know you're looking at me and think, where does he get a head of hair like that? Well, all right. I'm what you might call an anti-example. When I saw that I was balding, I said to myself, I'm balding, and I didn't do anything about it. You don't have to be that way. Hair Club, you go to Hair Club, they are the leader in total hair solutions with a legacy of success for over 40 years. Whether you're looking to revitalize the growth of your own hair or to learn more about the latest proven methods for hair replacement and restoration, Hair Club's professionally trained stylists, hair health experts, and consultants will craft a personalized solution to ensure you feel your best and get the most out of your hair. See for yourself just how powerful great hair can be. And when you do, let me know. Let me know how powerful it can be, because I am an example of what not to do. What you should do is go to hairclub.com/Klavan today for a free hair analysis and a free take-home hair care kit, all valued at over $300. Hairclub.com/Klavan for a free hair analysis and free hair care kit. Hairclub.com/Klavan. Experience your hair and your life at its best only with Hair Club. You will love it. And just go to them and say, please, please don't let me become like Klavan. And by the way, how do you spell that? It's Klavan. So 2 people got the boot from Donald Trump yesterday. One of them, Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions was, what can you say about Jeff Sessions? He was the Attorney General. He was one of Trump's earliest supporters. And then he recused himself from the Russia investigation, leading to the appointment of the special prosecutor, special counsel, Robert Mueller, and this investigation has gone on and on. I hate to keep pointing out how incredibly right I am. I always hate to point out how incredibly right, because I don't want you to get it in your head that I am always right, even though that's the case. I don't, because it makes other people look bad. But really, when they appointed this special counsel, the 2 times, actually there've been more than that, but two of the times, people have come after me for what I said. One of them was when Ted Cruz went to the convention and dissed Donald Trump at the convention. And I said that was both a moral error and a political error. And everybody said, oh, no, you're wrong. The wonderful Ted Cruz, how could he be wrong? And I said, look, I love him, but he made a mistake. He paid, part of what happened to him with Beto O'Rourke in Texas was him paying for that mistake. That was a mistake. You got to be loyal to your party. You don't have to support Donald Trump, but you don't show up in his house at his convention and diss him. That's bad politics, and it's actually not the right thing to do. And Cruz paid for that in Texas, losing some points and coming too darn close to losing to Beto O'Rourke. The other thing was this appointment of Robert Mueller, that they allowed a special counsel to be appointed. I told you it was going to go on and on. He was never going to stop. We don't even know anymore what his brief is. It started out, it was Russian collusion, but then, what's his name? Rod Rosenstein the deputy AG. He rewrote the brief for the special counsel, and that's never been made public. We don't even know what it is. So Sessions recused himself, and Trump has been furious about it ever since. And here's the thing. There's no getting around this. Trump has treated him appallingly. This is one of the things about Donald Trump that I just think is an all negative. Jeff Sessions is a good guy. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows he's a man of straight up integrity. He was one of Trump's first supporters. If he was angry at him, you call him in the office and say, I'm really ticked off about this. You don't go on Twitter and say he's disgraceful. You don't insult him again and again and again. You don't humiliate him. It's just the wrong thing to do. And I know a lot of you are full on Trumpsters. And listen, I've talked about what a great job I think he's doing. I think Trump is doing a great job, but you do not treat a man of respect like Jeff Sessions like that. That said, Sessions, I believe, made a mistake. He thought he was doing the right thing. He thought he was doing the principal thing, but he is living in a world where those rules no longer apply. Eric, what's his name? The Obama AG, Holder, thank you. Eric Holder, whose name I black out his name. I block out his name because I think it was so bad. He said, I'm Obama's wingman. I got to be there for my boy. That's what he said. I'm Obama's wingman. And nobody said a word, not a word, okay? Jeff Sessions, he didn't have to be his wingman. He could have lived by a higher principle. That was fine. But you don't step down when a guy is being attacked the way Donald Trump has been attacked with this phony, baloney Russian collusion thing. It has been a phony, baloney thing since the start. It would have been far, far more honest to have a special counsel, as Trey Gowdy's been calling for, investigate the way this investigation got started, the way this whole Russian collusion thing got started, Hillary Clinton's role in it, John Brennan's role in it. That would be worth investigating. I don't even want a special counsel. I think the special counsel rule ought to go by the boards. I think they ought to get rid of it. I don't even want it for that. Jeff Sessions made a mistake, but it was a mistake of principle. It was a mistake of decency. Trump had every reason to be frustrated and annoyed with him, but he should not have dragged him through the mud in public. So the minute the election is over, the midterms are over, he fires him. The same day, while he's saying, I'm going to take a look and make decisions down the line, he fired him. That was the right thing to do. He asked for his resignation. To be fair, that was the right thing to do. Why? Because remember James Comey. He came in, he hugged James Comey, and then when he fired him, it was, oh my goodness, obstruction of justice. They're playing it that way anyway. They're going to play this as if he was doing something evil anyway. He was not. He wouldn't put Rod Rosenstein, the deputy AG, who would naturally be the guy to replace Jeff Sessions. He didn't let him replace him. Why not? Because Rod Rosenstein is reputed to have been sitting around going, oh, we got to tape, I'm going to go wire myself and prove that the Trump is not fit for office and we'll get rid of him that way. Maybe he was joking. Maybe he never said it. We don't even know. But Rod Rosenstein and the president have not been getting along. Rod Rosenstein has not shown up to be questioned by Congress as he was supposed to be. He did the right thing. And instead, he appointed Matthew Whitaker, who was he was the chief of staff, I think. And he has made a little noise because before he was in the Justice Department, while he was still on his own as a lawyer, he went on TV numerous times, and he's a Trump loyalist, and he dissed the Mueller investigation. Here's just a clip.
So I can see a scenario where Jeff Sessions is replaced with a recess appointment, and that Attorney General doesn't fire Bob Mueller, but he just reduces his budget so low that his investigation grinds to almost a halt.
So he's talking about squeezing Mueller out, and Chuck Schumer, of course. I think 3 people were killed because they were standing between Chuck Schumer and a microphone. Chuck Schumer immediately races to the microphone with this total load of palaver.
Protecting Mueller and his investigation is paramount. It would create a constitutional crisis if this were a prelude to ending or greatly limiting the Mueller investigation. And I hope President Trump and those he listens to will refrain from that. I find the timing very suspect, number one. But number two, our paramount view is that any attorney general, whether this one or another one, should not be able to interfere with the Mueller investigation in any way. They should not be able to end it. They should not be able to limit it. They should not be able to interfere with Mueller going forward and doing what he thinks is the right thing. And that will help guide us as we go through this process.
Now, this is nonsense. The Justice Department is part of the executive branch. They can do a lot of different things. Nobody's going to stop Mueller from that. I don't think anybody, Whitaker or anybody that Trump appoints going forward, he'll probably wait until he has the greater majority in the Senate. I don't think anybody's going to stop the Mueller investigation. The Mueller investigation has gone so far that it's about time for him to report. They keep saying, and now is the time. Mueller did the right thing, by the way, by not saying anything around the election. If James Comey had been that smart, Hillary Clinton would probably be president today. But Mueller has done the right thing in terms of that. But I think that Trump did the right thing. I think he hated the guy. He was frustrated with him. He waited until after the election. This is when the shakeups always happen after the midterms. He waited. He said goodbye. Thank you very much for your service and all this stuff. So, the way I feel about this, I feel like Sessions was ill-treated, but he also did the wrong thing, and now he has to go, and that's the way it should be. What I basically hope he does is goes back and runs for the Senate, get his seat back, because we lost that over the Roy Moore kerfuffle, and it would be nice to get it back. The other guy who got Trump's boot in his backside was our old friend Jim. Look at me, I'm Jim Acosta. So I have to talk about this because there's a couple of different things that are going on here. Let's play again this confrontation. We cut it back a little bit. We played the whole thing last time, but here is Acosta asking what he thinks is an interesting question.
I wanted to challenge you on one of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign in the midterms.
Here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think, if I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President.
That's enough.
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN.
So that's an extraordinary confrontation between the press. Obviously, these are extraordinary times. Let's start with the idea that he laid hands on the young woman, the aide, who was reaching for the microphone to take it away because the president of the United States had told Acosta that he was done. He had his question. Trump answered the question, and it was done. Sarah Sanders tweeted out this conduct. So basically his hard White House pass, he's been denied access to the White House. It's been suspended. I don't know for how long, but he was punished for his behavior. And Sarah Sanders tweeted out, this conduct is absolutely unacceptable. It is also completely disrespectful to the reporter's colleagues not to allow them an opportunity to ask a question. President Trump has given the press more access than any president in history. That is true. And she also said that it was wrong for him to lay hands on this young woman. It was wrong for him to lay hands on this woman. So now a debate starts up. Did he lay hands on this woman? And the White House tweeted out a slowed down version, close-up of him brushing her arm away. Now, he said, "Pardon me, ma'am," afterwards. Now, I don't know what's in Jim Acosta's mind, and I'm not gonna beat the drum about, he didn't assault her, obviously, but he did chop her hand away. It looks to me, I've now watched this thing maybe 15 times. It looks to me pretty clearly that he chops her hand away. Now, maybe he did it by accident, maybe he did it by reflex. And also, she's a big girl in a big girl's profession. This is part of the game. Like he didn't punch her, he didn't shove her, he didn't do anything like this. So, Acosta is a buffoon and he's kind of a thug. He is kind of a jerk. And what he did to her was part of his jerkiness. But I'm not going to accuse him of assaulting a female. I think we've gotten too far with this stuff. And again, when you're working in the bigs, things get a little bit rough. But he was totally out of line. To me, the important thing is he was not practicing journalism. Donald Trump in that exchange is 100% in the right. The question, I said this yesterday, but it's worth repeating because I want to show you something, two amazing other things. The question that he asked, they keep saying, well, the president has to be ready for hard questions. He didn't ask a hard question. He said, you say it's an invasion. I say it's not. And Trump quite rightly said, we have a difference of opinion. What is the importance of Jim Acosta's opinion? He's a reporter. His opinion matters exactly 0%. And this is, in essence, the entire problem, that Jim Acosta thinks his job is to correct the president's opinion with his own. That's not journalism. It's not even smart. He's not some kind of expert. He's not saying, well, there was this and you didn't call it an invasion then, or is that, and all he's doing is saying, you're wrong and I'm right because I'm Jim Acosta, so look at me. The thing is, I'm absolutely certain that Acosta is basing his journalistic career. He thinks that he is going to be Sam Donaldson or Dan Rather. And the thing about Sam Donaldson and Dan Rather, first of all, ended his career in disgrace when it was shown that he was peddling fake documents in an attempt to get George W. Bush on nothing, on some stupid little violation of regulations when he was in the National Guard that would have meant nothing. It was years and years and years ago. It just would have been completely unimportant. And yet he so hated him. He disgraced himself, ended his professional career. And you can have Robert Redford play him in the movies all you want. He still is a bad journalist who disgraced himself. And Donaldson, too, was an opinion journalist as well. And when he went after Nixon, he was doing it for his opinion too. So in other words, Jim Acosta is a bad version of bad journalism that the left has been elevating all this time. And if you want to see, here is Jake Tapper, yesterday, I think it was, I praised Jake Tapper for asking tough questions. Maybe it was the day before. But Tapper the two of them preening in this moment. And I'm going to show you something after this that just puts everything they say in this to shame. But let's play this first.
But President Trump did something that I've never seen an American president do, which is go on a personal rant against you for the questions you were attempting to ask.
Well, Jake, when they go low, we keep doing our jobs. That's the way I look at it. And, I had a question to ask. And if we had played the tape a little bit before that exchange, you would have seen the question that I was asking, which was essentially about this lie that he told before the midterm elections, that this caravan of migrants moving from Central America to the U.S. border with Mexico is somehow an invasion when it's not. They're still hundreds of miles away and they pose nothing of a threat to the United States. But the president used that language, obviously, as we've talked about so many times, to galvanize his base. He just didn't like hearing that question. He didn't like being challenged on that point. And he certainly doesn't like being called out for his falsehoods.
Not a falsehood. It's a different characterization. There's no falsehood involved. And this thing that they've come up with is still hundreds of miles away. It's still hundreds. Look, at this point, the caravan is all broken up and kind of disappeared and dissipated. But to say that it's 100 miles away, that means nothing. To say it's not a threat, on what basis are you saying that? Or what basis are you saying that thousands of people, at one point it was close to 15,000 people, marching this way is not a threat? There are hundreds of miles. This is like when Alexander the Great invaded Greece. They were going, well, maybe he won't come this way. Maybe he won't come down and attack. It's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? They're hundreds of miles away. If the army, if a foreign invasion force was hundreds of miles away rolling in this direction, would that not be a threat? Jim Acosta is entitled to his opinion. I just don't want to hear it, and I don't know why we should. And Jake Tapper, his dainty shock that a reporter should get the boot the way Acosta got the boot is not in keeping with the reaction of the press corps to Barack Obama. Remember Saint Barack Obama, the savior of our nation, who treated someone shouting rude questions at him like this, had him thrown out. But the incredible part of this video, and you have to listen to the end, is the reaction of the press corps. What you hear in the background is the press corps reacting to President Barack Obama throwing out a rude questioner.
Civil rights of LGBT Americans is... Yeah, hold on a second. Okay, you know what? No. No. Hey. Yeah, listen. You're in my house. Come on. It's not, you know what? It's not respectful when you get invited to somebody. You're not gonna get a good response from me by interrupting me like this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No. Shame on you. You shouldn't be doing this. Come on. Can we escort this person out? Come on.
Are you freaking kidding me? Members of the press, this is why we hate you. We hate you because you lie. We hate you because you lie. You lied to us for 8 years. You treated this guy, Obama, like he was heaven sent. Look, I think he was an incompetent and a leftist. And I think both those things are bad for a president. I've always said, I don't think he was evil. I think he was ignorant. I think he was one of those guys who doesn't know what he doesn't know. And I think his policy, he ran dishonestly. He ran as a centrist and he became a leftist. He basically tried to intersectionalize the country. I think he has failed. I think it's amazing the way Donald Trump has erased his memory. We can barely remember what he stood for or what he did. It's almost all gone except for this awful wreckage of Obamacare that keeps dragging us down. It's like a can tied to a dog's tail. But this is why we hate you. It's not because of what you do to Trump. If you had done it to Obama too, we might still think, oh, you're rude, but at least you'd be treating everybody the same way. You are liars. And when Trump says you're the enemy of the people, that may be over the top, but you're certainly the enemy of the president. You are certainly the enemy of conservatives. You're certainly the enemy of traditional Americanism, and you're certainly the enemy of the Republican Party. And everything Trump is doing, the best thing he's doing is attacking you because you deserve it for that, what you did with Obama. It's not what you do to Trump. Torment the president all you want. What do they say? Make the afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. Fine, but you didn't do it. 8 years, you didn't do it. And now you're saying, oh, can we be journalists again? No, you can't. Now you're just partisans. Now you're just commentators and you're liars. And that's why we hate you. And you deserve it. You've earned it. You went out and you got it yourself. Good for you. And you're still doing it. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. But I want to remind you that all of this wonderful content is coming to you. And we're not doing it for fun. We're doing it because we want your money. Send us your money. Just don't even think about it. Just throw your wallet at the screen, whatever device you're doing, just stuff your wallet into your iPhone. We want your money for a lousy $10. For a lousy $10, you can subscribe to the Daily Wire and the things you will get. We are giving away so much stuff at this point. You get another kingdom with these beautiful visuals. You get Ben and Knowles and me and Walsh. You get us all these shows. You can be in our mailbag. We answer all your questions. My answers, guaranteed correct, guaranteed to change your life, even sometimes for the better. You get to ask questions in our conversation. You get to ask questions in the backstage. All of this stuff for a lousy $10 a month or $100. It really is. I should say $9.99 because I'm supposed to think you're stupid enough to think like, oh, it's less than $10. But we all know it. $9.99 is $10. So it's $10 a month, $100 for the year. And if you come for the year, we give you the Leftist Tears tumbler. I know we shouldn't. It's wrong to talk about, to savor leftist tears, but they are just so good. All right. So they're still doing this. This is the other part of this. 2 Muslim women won elections as congresswomen. And this is how NBC, from our pals at Newsbusters, this is how NBC and CBS reported their election. Take a look.
In Minnesota, 36-year-old Yilhan Omar became the first ever Somali American elected to Congress.
Here in Minnesota, it's a cold state, but the people have warm hearts, and we don't just welcome immigrants, but we send them to Washington.
My mom is
born in Somalia. She and her family fled the violence of civil war when she was 8. After years in a refugee camp in Kenya, she immigrated here when she was 12, learning English in 3 months.
That's the America I'm gonna go fight for.
And mastering politics in the years that followed.
This is Casey Hunt on Capitol Hill, where history is about to be made. The newest Congress featuring more than 100 women, a new record. Among them, the first Muslim women, Michigan's Rashida Tlaib and Minnesota's Ilhan Omar.
So what this points out is the incredible emptiness of the press's intersectional identity politics. Let's call it identity politics. This identity politics, this is the thing. They don't even know it's a point of view anymore. Just like Jim Acosta can't tell the difference between his opinion and a fact. He can't tell the difference. I mean, they can't tell the difference. They don't even know that reporting was bad reporting because it's historic. It's historic. And of course, it's never historic when the right does it. It's not historic that a Cuban American is a senator in Texas. That's not historic. I think the first South Korean was elected. That's not historic because it's a Republican. The fact that they treat Ruth Bader Ginsburg like the first female Supreme Court justice. That's another thing. Ruth Bader Ginsburg fell and hurt herself, broke her ribs. When a woman that old takes a fall, that's a bad thing. That is a bad sign, and I wish her well. I hope she comes back and heals. If she doesn't, that's going to be the next big story for sure. There's going to be a great big fight, but I hope she does heal and she's fine. I know when old people fall, that is really, really difficult. But they treat her like she's the first female Supreme Court justice. And of course, she's not Sandra Day O'Connor, but she was a Republican. So it's only historic when the left does it. But of course, the historicity of it, the historicness of it, ignores the fact of who these two women are. These are two virulent anti-Semites. And the first one, Ilhan Omar, has been very credibly accused of having married her own brother in 2009 as a way of gaming the immigration system as possible immigration fraud. And she may even have committed student loan fraud as well. She says that she married the guy, but the allegation that he is her brother is absurd and offensive, she says. But there is evidence that this is true. There is a lot of student enrollment records and other evidence supporting the fact that she may have married her own brother to game the immigration system. And she also has sent out these tweets about Jews, about the state of Israel, about how Israel, let me see if I can find the tweet. It was how Israel has blinded people to, the Jews have blinded people to the truth. The other woman, Tlaib, she has embraced a one-state solution, which means the Jewish state virtually vanishes. She's denied the Jews their right to a sovereign nation. She's saying separate but equal doesn't work. She's linked to an article on Twitter with the headline, How Israel is Inciting Palestinian Violence. Ha ha ha. Tweeting support for Razmia Odeh, who faces a life sentence in Israel for murdering 2 American students in a 1969 supermarket bombing in Jerusalem. This empty, racist philosophy of identity politics that does not hold people to account for the things that they do. The same way as Andrew Gillum running in Florida, who lost in Florida for governor, was able to say, oh, you're just charging me with corruption because you're just charging me with corruption because I'm black. Well, he's being investigated by the FBI. He said in his concession speech, I'm not going anywhere. The FBI may disagree. The FBI may come in and pick him up under the arms, and he may be going somewhere in a big hurry and somewhere he doesn't like very much. This intersectional identity politics has just been, it's a racist philosophy, and it has emptied the press. It has emptied the press of any mindfulness of what people are and what they believe, which is the only important thing about people, really, especially when they're running for office. The important thing is, what do you believe? What are you going to do? Who are you going to vote for? Those are the important things, and they simply do not report on it. Going back to this thing that Knowles and I did at Loyola Marymount last night, where they kept asking, people asked us a number of times, if you think that the Democrats are so bad for black people, how come black people keep voting for them? And I said, listen, anybody can be corrupted. Anybody can be bought. I mean, anybody can be told they're special. There are two races in this country. Two races, if I can call them that. Two let's call them ethnic groups, who haven't done as well as other ethnic groups. One of the Native Americans, the Indians, and the other are blacks who haven't done as well as they should have. Both of them have been told they're special. Both of them have been told they have to be paid back for the sins that were committed against them historically. Those sins are real. Those sins are real. You'll never hear me say those sins aren't real. But the past is past. And when you go back and try and fix the past, you can only make things worse. Both of them have been isolated in their race by policy. If people would stop isolating them, they would be set free to be Americans just like everybody else, and they would live and rise and fall on their own actions and in their own chances. The fact that this identity, this racist philosophy of identity politics has infested the press, as it has infested the universities, as it has infested Hollywood, is just an indication of people who cannot tell the difference between opinion and fact. They cannot tell the difference between philosophy and fact. They cannot tell the difference, finally, between politics and morality. This is the emptiness. When they say that the Republicans have failed to communicate with the educated, is because the education system has been corrupted. The entire communication system of this country has been corrupted and needs to change. All right, stuff I like. That was it? I don't know. That was from Joseph Carpenter. It's nice little music, but so Monday, is Veterans Day, and Sunday is the 11th, is 11/11/11. It's the 11. It is the 11th month, the 11th day of the 11th month. This is the day on which World War I ended, and it ended. What was it? It was the 11th hour of the 11th month of the 11th day. That's what it was, when the treaty went into effect and the fighting stopped. And World War I is something that, especially in this country where we only came in at the last moment and saved the day, as we tended to do with Europe in the 20th century. But it's something that people in America especially do not understand, that it affects us to this day. To this day, at the turn of the century, England especially, Europe also, were the height of civilization. They had taken civilization to a place it had never been before. They were standing at the pinnacle of human endeavor. They really were. And a mere 14 years later, they had essentially wiped out their entire civilization for no reason. I mean, it wiped out a generation of men. Russia became the Soviet Union during World War I. The Austro-Hungarian Empire came to an end. The Ottoman Empire was essentially brought to the end. It set the stage for the rise of Adolf Hitler, and it really was the end of the great civilization of Europe, which had lasted since the Renaissance at least, and had brought mankind, as I say, to a new level. And no one to this day, no one can tell you why this war began. Obviously, it began with the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand. But why? Why from that, this incredible domino collapse of nations, so that so much was destroyed, so much good was wiped off the face of the earth? In some way, you might think, it might have been German expansionism. The left has seized the narrative. The left seized the narrative afterwards, as they are very good at doing after a war, and sold the idea that it was nationalism. It was nationalism that was the problem. Well, maybe, but maybe it was the way that the nations were set up, so that they were being ruled by all of Europe at that point was being ruled by Queen Victoria's family. So maybe it was an internecine war. It is really hard to know. It is hard to know why this destruction happened. Maybe it was just like, Norman Mailer once said about cancer. Maybe the reason they can't cure cancer is because cancer is just death, and eventually death will come. And maybe that's it. Maybe civilizations just die, and it was time for Europe to die, and it did die. What is there now is not the Europe of old. It is not even, I don't even think it's going to survive another century in its present form. And it also destroyed, World War I also destroyed the concept of patriotism, the sure and certain idea that sweet, dulce et decorum est pro patria more, sweet and right it is to die for one's fatherland. That was the thing that came under fire. There was a famous poem called Dulce et Decorum Est by Wilfred Owen. Many of the poems written at this time were written by gay men, which is really interesting. So these were outsiders, people who were kind of excluded from society in some ways, who said, well, why did we wind up in these trenches? It's not that they weren't brave. It's not that they didn't go and fight. He wrote this, the famous poem in which he talks about men being gassed. This was the first time poison gas was used, and it was so hideous to watch people die. He talks about a man being thrown into a wagon where he's dying, and he says, if in some smothering dreams you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in and watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face, like a devil's sick of sin, if you could hear at every jolt the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues, my friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory, the old lie, dulce et decorum est, pro patria mori. So that, some of the poetry, it's a beautiful poem. It is a fantastic poem. So if you want to read stuff, I'm talking about stuff I like, if you want to read some wonderful stuff about World War I, it is well worth it to read the poetry that came out of it. Also the wonderful patriotic poem that came out at the very beginning, if I should die, say only this of me, there is some corner of a foreign field that is forever England. That was a beautiful poem, but those kinds of feelings of patriotism disappeared. Great book to read, The Great War and Modern Memory by Paul Fussell, Fussell, I think it is. The Great War and Modern Memory is a classic. I think it was published about 25 years ago. Talks about the way the war infected our culture and infects our memory and our imagination still. Thomas Mann's novel, Magic Mountain, it is not an easy novel. It is a philosophical novel. It's told about a tubercular ward, a TB ward. And it's the story of a TB ward, and it basically is comparing the Europe that comes before the war as a group of sick people. And it's a philosophical novel about the state of Europe, kind of discussing why the war came almost as a relief to people, because they went off with great celebration, great patriotism, thinking they were going to a brief battle that would be over in months, and instead, 4 years later, the entire civilization had been destroyed. And of course, one of the most famous novels, All Quiet on the Western Front by Erich Maria Remarque. It's a spectacular novel, an anti-war novel, and it was made into a beautiful film in the 30s that just hammers home this idea. A young man goes off to war inspired by his professor, who tells him about the iron men of valor and how you have to die for your country, sweet and right it is to die for your country. And then he comes back from the front, and he sees the professor saying this to people again, saying this to the young men again, and inspiring them to go to war. And he wanders into the class, and the professor says, how wonderful that you're here. Now you should inspire them. Tell them how wonderful it is to go to war. And here's a little bit of the scene from the wonderful 1930 version of All Quiet on the Western Front.
If you remember some deed of heroism, some touch of nobility, tell about it.
I can't tell you anything you don't know. We live in the trenches out there. We fight. We try not to be killed. Sometimes we are. That's all.
No, Paul. I've been there. I know what it's like. That's not what one dwells on, Paul.
I heard you in here reciting that same old stuff, making more iron men, more young heroes. You still think it's beautiful and sweet to die for your country, don't you? We used to think you knew. The first bombardment taught us better.
A war so terrible, so useless, so senseless that it changed the world forever. And its attitudes, it gave power to the left. So much power that it even began the Soviet Union. It gave power to the left in its anti-patriotism and its sense that forces beyond our control were throwing us to death. It is a war well worth studying, and brilliant things have been written about it. and really interesting things that need to be considered, because the logic of war may be relentless. It may be that we can't avoid wars ultimately, but they can destroy everything good that we have. Thank God for the soldiers who stand on guard and hopefully prevent wars from happening with strength. And thank God for their courage when they do have to go and fight. Just like, as I said at the beginning, just like we should thank God for the police who charge in to dangerous situations to protect not only our safety, but our rights as well. And we now go into the Klavanless weekend. Please go on and listen to Another Kingdom when it becomes available tomorrow to all, and subscribe to dailywire.com so you can get the whole thing. But if you're not going to subscribe or you can't afford it, please listen to Another Kingdom. Go on iTunes and give us a 5-star review. For those of you who survived the Klavanless weekend, I know it won't be all of you, but for those happy few, those lucky few who come crawling back here, we'll all gather on Monday. I'm Andrew Klavan. This is The Andrew Klavan Show. The Andrew Klavan Show is produced by Robert Sterling. Executive producer, Jeremy Boring. Senior producer, Jonathan Hay. Our supervising producer is Mathis Glover. Technical producer, Austin Stevens. Edited by Alex Zingaro. Audio is mixed by Mike Cormina. Hair and makeup is by Jesua Alvera. And our animations are by Cynthia Angulo and Jacob Jackson. The Andrew Klavan Show is a Daily Wire Forward Publishing production. Copyright Forward Publishing 2018.